I was thinking back to all the different professional developments I've sat through, and I don't think I ever sat in a PD once that took something off of my plate. Every single PD that I sat through was always something added to my plate. A new initiative, a new strategy, a new curriculum, a new theme for the year, a new tech tool we needed to add to our toolbox. It was always something more, another thing to track, more data to gain. Nothing took things off of my plate. But that is not what we do here at It's Not Rocket Science and Secondary Science Simplified podcast. I am all about taking things off of your plate. I want to simplify your workload. So if you want practical PD that you can do from home that actually makes your life easier and doesn't put more things on your plate, shameless plug for all my virtual PD courses. Link will be in the show notes. But today in this episode, like all podcast episodes, totally free content and totally free ways for you to hopefully make your life easier, because that's what I really want for you. And so one way we can simplify our lives is by doing less of some things to have more margin for doing other things. I mentioned this back in episode 216 when we talked about a new way to goal set for this new semester and this new year. And I said, hey, I want you to take some time to think about this. Think about things you can do less of this year. And then I gave you a little precursor saying, hey, in a few weeks, I'm going to give you 3 things that you can do less of. And that's what today's episode is. I'm going to give you 3 things I want you to consider stopping this semester. I don't want you to do them anymore for a semester and just see how it goes. Are you ready to hear them? Let's dive in. This is Secondary Science Simplified, a podcast for secondary science teachers who want to engage their students and simplify their lives. I'm Rebecca Joyner from It's Not Rocket Science. As a high school science teacher turned curriculum writer, I am passionate about helping other science teachers love their jobs, serve their students, and do it all in only 40 hours a week. Are you ready to rock the time you spend in your classroom and actually have a life outside of it? You are in the right place, teacher friend. Let's get to today's episode. Now, I know a preface can be annoying to hear, but I feel like this episode calls for a preface before I dive into these 3 things, and it is this. I often find when I kind of say extreme things on the internet that people immediately get defensive and, not necessarily to my face. Maybe you're just feeling defensive in your heart. And as you're hearing new ideas, you're thinking of all the reasons why it can't and won't work. But here's what I want to challenge you with today before I really challenge you with 3 things I want you to stop doing. I want to challenge you as you listen to this episode to have the mindset of a scientist here. Consider stopping these different things as an experiment. You don't have to stop them forever, but we're never going to know if your worst case scenarios and all the reasons you say it won't work. We won't know if it could work if we never try and see. I want you to test out stopping these things so that you actually can get data so that you'll be able to make data informed decisions about how you run your classroom and how you live your life and how you teach your students, but only if you actually test some things out. Now, I can't extend the experiment analogy that far. Obviously, we won't have controlled variables here, an experimental group, control group. We're going to change multiple variables at once and see what happens. But I have a feeling that you can still get a pretty good idea of if these things simplify your life or not, if you stop one thing or all 3. So that's my request for you as we dive into this episode. Could you listen to these 3 ideas and just receive them with maybe a growth mindset and the mind of a scientist saying, what if? Instead of, here are all the reasons why it won't work. What if it did work? What would that look like? And would I be bold enough to experiment and test it out? Okay, so the first thing I want you to consider stopping this semester is I want you to stop assigning homework. Okay, here's why. What is the point of assigning it? Why do you, as a listener, each of you will have your own answer to this, but why are you assigning homework? If you're thinking, well, it's for them to practice, they need to practice more, they need that reinforcing practice. I would say to you that they're probably not getting that. They're not getting that reinforcement because probably 90% of them are cheating on it or with each other or with AI. That's just the nature of homework nowadays. The integrity of the assignment just gets lost when we send it home. And thus, it's not fulfilling its purpose. Yes, it is for the 10% of your class. I mean, obviously, I'm just throwing statistics out here. I'm just thinking about my own classes. Like probably 10 or 15% were actually doing things honestly and on their own. And then the other were collaborating on it, if you will. But then they're not actually getting the reinforcing practice that they need. So if that's the point of the assignment, I think that's not a great reason to do it. Now, if another reason you do homework is because we don't have enough time in class, so they've got to do some stuff at home. I really want to challenge you to consider auditing what you're doing so that you can make time in your class period for what matters most. And for some of your students, what matters most is those inquiry lab experiences, is all the extra labs and research projects and whatever. For some groups, what matters most is building in more class time for reinforcing practice. One of the things that I'm really proud of that I did last year in 2025 was that we did the differentiation series on the podcast back in February, and that led to me writing a differentiation guide for each of my 4 curricula. So there's one for anatomy, biology, chemistry, and physical science. And these are like 20 plus page guides. But what I do is I walk through each unit in each of those curricula. And first, I outline the differences between the included CP, which are the college prep or on grade level resources, and the honors or advanced resources, because all of my curricula come with both in the bundle. So I walk through the differences, like topically, like, hey, these extra topics are covered here in honors or whatever. Then I walk through the actual instructional resources, which almost all the instructional resources are the same. Honors tends to have some extras, but then there also will be other things like on the CP resource, I might mark a few questions as challenge questions. So those are more optional, whereas for honors, those are required. So I make note of all of those. I also make note of all of the differences in the quiz and test questions. And then the last page for each unit is my favorite. On the left side, I give all the ways you can take the existing on grade level resources and kind of work with them to lower the level for students that are, on the lower achieving scale. And then on the right side, I give you ideas for how you can take all the honors resources and up-level them, make them even more challenging, ways you can extend. And so one of the things I do on that left side for those lower achieving students is I tell you for every unit, like, hey, I hate to say it, but if you need to cut some instructional resources out so you have more time for reinforcing practice with your students, then you can cut this, this, and this, and this. Like, yes, they're all good, meaningful learning experiences that will improve their understanding and improve their skill set in the science classroom. But some groups just need more reinforcement, and they're not getting valuable reinforcement when they're doing homework at home, especially in an age of AI and answer keys being uploaded on the internet and what they've always had, which is their friends that they can copy from. Okay, so that practice is so much better done in class, and it's worth finding the class time to do it and not putting that burden back on your students. So I have these differentiation guides. They come with each curriculum. Also, if you're struggling with being behind schedule, like you're listening to me right now and you're like, I can't cut out homework because we're already so far behind, I want you to listen to episode 116 of the podcast. I will link it in the show notes. It's what to do if you are behind schedule, and I think it would really help you. So the first reason you should stop assigning homework is most likely the reason you're assigning it is not even a very good reason, if you're anything like me, because those were some of the reasons I assigned it. And those are kind of just excuses, if I'm honest, or just not valuable. Also, it's another thing that you are going to have to grade, and we want to decrease how much you're grading and actually use the grading time that you are going to allot for grading for things that are really meaningful. Checking homework is not that. The last thing I'll say, which I think is the most important, is I just found when I stopped assigning homework that I could tell my students, like, hey, I'm going to respect your time outside of my classroom as long as you respect my time inside of the classroom. So I will never assign you homework. I will make time for you to get all of your work done in my class. But if you're going to be goofing around, acting a fool, not listening, wasting time, then you will end up having homework. So you disrespect my time, and now it's going to impact your time outside of my class. That was such a valuable reasoning tool with my students. I'll also say this, like, I feel like students have always had so much going on in their lives. I mean, there's never been a generation of students that hasn't had a lot going on, but I'm just thinking specifically as a millennial, my childhood experience is so much different from the experiences of the students I've taught. I think nowadays more than ever, both parents are working. And so a lot of students are coming home and having to help with their little siblings when they get off the bus. Both of my parents worked, but none of my friends had two working parents. I was the only one in my friend group that had two working parents. I was the youngest though, so I was alone or being taken care of by my parents. But I think so many of our students, because of the economy and how expensive cost of living is, like their parents are working, so they get home and they're expected to help with their little siblings. I think also childhood has really been lost. Like children and students, they don't play like they used to. They're just not. I mean, I remember riding bikes like with my friends still in 8th grade, freshman year of high school. That is just not the reality. And I want them to have space to do that. Another is they have so many extracurricular activities. They have no time. They're doing so many things. Like all these kids that are like playing multiple sports and learning the cello and whatever, like they have no time in their schedule. And then also so many of my students, y'all, I don't know about yours, so many of my students worked. So many, whether they were providing for their families or just working for their own cost of living and their own expenses. Like, again, life is so expensive now. So a lot of my students had part-time jobs and they were going straight from school to work. They don't have time to be doing homework for me. So I just want you to really consider stopping with the homework and seeing what happens. I really think it'll benefit you and your students. Like everyone benefits from this. Now, if you are thinking it won't work, but you haven't tried it, like I said at the top, if you're saying that, but you have never tried to stop assigning homework, then you do not have evidence to back up that claim that you're saying it won't work. I'm telling you that I did it and it worked very, very well. And I have evidence from my personal experience to back that up. Now, of course, I am only one person who tested it out on several groups of students. So I do have a limited sample size here in my experiment, but you have no sample size if you've never tried it. So I want you to try it and see. And I want you to consider, instead of thinking there's no way that would work, consider, well, what if it did work? What if I stopped assigning homework and now I have less to grade? My students are way more attentive in class because they're motivated to finish all their work so that they don't have to finish things at home. We have a greater mutual respect for each other. And then I don't have just like all of these assignments that they've cheated on that I'm having to grade and we're having to go over and da-da-da. Like we're going to just get all that reinforcing practice done in class. I want you to consider stopping assigning homework. The second thing I want you to stop doing this semester is I want you to stop staying late, okay, at school. I want you to pick the hours that you're going to work. Okay, so let's say your school runs from 8 to 3. I want you to decide, like I'm going to get there at 7:15 and I'm going to leave at 3:30 or 3:45. Those are my work hours. You set those. And then I want you to pick one day of the week that you're going to stay late to catch up on grading and all of those things. Grading, lesson planning, whatever you need to do. So you look at your schedule and maybe it's like, okay, my partner could pick up the kids from daycare from school so I could stay late this day. Or, oh, my kids have practice on this day so I could stay late. Like I'm going to stay till 4:30 or 5 on this day and that's going to be my one day. And then I encourage you also to maybe pick a second day that's a buffer day if needed. And then that is it. So I always stayed late on Tuesdays. And then on Fridays, that was my buffer day. I taught 8 to 3. And then from 3 to 3:30, I had built-in tutoring every day. But no one ever came on Fridays, ever. So Fridays, I told myself I would stay till 4 if needed. And that I almost always had a full hour because no one would come for tutoring. And then that was kind of my buffer. And if I got everything I needed done, I could leave early. But if not, like I stayed till 4 and I got it done. And then that meant that Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, it was never a question in my brain. Like, am I staying? Am I going to work on this? Am I not? No. Because like that is not my work hours. I have decided like I will stay late on Tuesdays and I'll use Friday as my buffer day for overflow if needed. But that is it. And then you can go home and live your life and remember that this is your job, not your life. Having boundaries is so important. I have 2 podcast episodes I want you to listen to if this is something you struggle with. Episode 199 is how to not take work home in your head or in reality this school year. And episode 139 is called Sunday Scaries, how I use my Friday planning to prevent them. Super practical. Okay, so I want you to stop staying late. Just try it for a quarter. Imagine how different your life would be. Imagine how much more energy you could have if you weren't just like constantly staying at work late, constantly, working outside of your contracted hours to work. What could that look like? What if it did work? And then last but not least, the third thing I want you to stop doing this semester, and this is so important, is stop checking your email in the middle of the day. It is a waste of time. It is a major distraction. It can be a major buzzkill to your mood if you get a very negative email that then can ruin your mood for the whole rest of the day. I don't think you should be on your phone or your email at all during school hours. Like I would put my phone in my demo table, and then every spare moment I had in a class period when students were working independently or during my planning or during lunch, like I'm using that to grade, lab prep, lesson plan, whatever, so that then I can leave when I want to leave at 3:30 every day. I'm a big fan of checking your email once when you get in the morning. That's why I like to get there early around 10:15. So I had time for an email check. And then once at the end of the day. And oftentimes at the end of the day, I'd be responding to emails I might have seen in the morning but didn't have a chance to get to. And then I'm leaving at the end of the day and I'm letting it be. I know it sounds so simple, but you would be amazed how much time you can reclaim if you just stop checking your email midday. It is such a time suck. It's such a, if you give a mouse a cookie situation, and it leads to this and then to that. Same with being on your phone. Like then you're all of a sudden you're on Instagram and you're scrolling. It's a waste of your time. I have an episode 77 I want you to listen to that's 5 myths you might believe about your work email that I think would really help you if you struggle with this. So I highly recommend that. Now, if you're feeling defensive, like, well, I have to check my email because that's how our admin tells us about emergency meetings and da-da-da-da. Okay, well, let's just try not checking and see what happens. Let's do an experiment, like I said. I guarantee if it's that important, your admin will come around and make sure everyone heard about it. Or you'll hear, while you're standing in the hallway between classes, greeting students during class change, you'll hear your neighboring teacher talk about, oh, did you see that email? Oh, no, I didn't. Or someone will walk around the classroom at the end of the day to make sure everyone heard about the faculty meeting and gets there. Like if they're going to be sending you pertinent information and it's a true emergency, it's probably not going to be an email. And that's how we need to start rewiring our minds and how we think about email, because it does not need to be that important. I think we got into some really bad, unhealthy habits and set really horrible boundaries during the pandemic and the virtual teaching and the hybrid teaching going back and forth where we're constantly available. And we need to majorly rein that back in and really protect your headspace too during the day so you can focus on getting those essential tasks done that are the most important part of your job, the grading, the lab prep, the lesson planning. Okay? So this is your challenge. Would you consider this semester stop assigning homework, stop staying late, and stop checking your email in the middle of the day? I would love it if you would, and I would love to hear from you if you do about how it changes your life. I genuinely believe it will simplify your life so much. I mentioned a ton of related episodes in this episode, so you can find links to all of those in the show notes at itsnotrocketscienceclassroom.com/episode 218. If you haven't left a review or a rating for the podcast, I would love it if you would do that, especially if you are ready to stop doing one of these 3 things this semester. Leave a 5-star rating and review for the podcast. All right, teacher friends, that wraps up today's episode. If you're looking for an easy way to start simplifying your life as a secondary science teacher, head to itsnotrocketscienceclassroom.com/challenge to grab your classroom reset challenge. And guess what? It's totally free. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you here next week. Until then, I'll be rooting for you, teacher friend.